All right, back in the basement again today to talk about these, the Trulap adjustable 8592 dumbbells, which I've had for about the past week. Now, I want to give you my first impressions on these for a couple of reasons. Number one, right out of the box, just talk about my initial thoughts about how they feel, how they work, how they adjust, who I think they're for, who I think they're not for, and just some other things to think about if you're considering getting these. I've been seeing a lot of feedback online from people saying, hey, these look really awesome. Can't wait to hear about it. So I want to give you my initial thoughts, just what you could expect if you do decide to purchase these. I also know that Trulap sent these out to a bunch of people. So you'll be getting inundated with a lot of reviews from people, which is always good to see. I always recommend people watch multiple reviews, get a lot of context before spending any kind of money on gym equipment. But I also know from a consumer standpoint that can be frustrating when all you're seeing is influencer type reviews, myself included, that you think that you're just getting sold. Now, on the bright side to you, I'm actually a little bit jaded about doing this impressions and review-ish video, if you will, because when Trulap first reached out to me, they literally said, we love what you do. We'd love for you to be the first review on these new dumbbells. Needless to say, I found out they reached out to a bunch of people and said something along the same lines. In fact, other content's already been released on them. So I could go kind of full metal jacket here and just kind of give these a bad review, tell you to stay away from them. That's not what I'm about. I'm just gonna give you my true thoughts on them and compare them to things that I've used like the Nuobells, fixed dumbbells, and the Pep and Fast series. Again, I will say that, however, I was sent these for free, including the stand. So take that for what it's worth. Now, upon receiving these, I think the first thing that stood out to me is the way that they come. Not that they were beat up by UPS, which they were. Again, that's nothing against Trulap here. They were packaged pretty well. The boxes did have a little bit of damage on it, but they were not only packed really well, but they were also reinforced by some other materials, which was nice. The nice thing for me in regards to how they showed up was that it was minimal packaging up front. So for this setup, 2 handles, and an actual rack was 3 boxes. So each actual handle, cradle, weights came in their own individual box. So 1 box, 2 box, and the 3rd box for the stand. The reason why this is nice is I actually don't like having to put stuff together. Nothing sucks more than getting a piece of equipment you've been patiently waiting for, you're excited about, into your home gym, only to have to spend a couple of hours building it. People just want to use it right out of the box. With these dumbbells, they're ready to go for the most part. I say that because even though they're all set up in the cradles, the weights are already in place for you, you don't have to have those in a separate box or whatever. Because of the weight of these things, they kind of sink down into the styrofoam, and the handles are set at the lowest setting when they're being sent. I'm assuming so that nothing breaks with the mechanism in shipment if UPS or whatever carrier delivers them to you is a little rough with them. But I could not get the handles and the plates lined up for me to completely adjust these to the heaviest setting, which would allow me to pull them right out of the box. I could only pull the handle out and the plates were a little bit loose, and I'd have to either take the plates out in chunks, or what I did was basically just massacre the box out of frustration, rip the box open, pull apart some of the cardboard and the styrofoam where it had sunk into, and just took the whole cradle out intact in one piece. The downside to doing so was what was initially a very small, compact package quickly took up a big amount of space and was a lot of garbage to throw away, including lots of little tiny pieces of styrofoam. I had to vacuum it up. So kind of annoying, but my rage of opening these was evident in that regard. But again, it's nice that they ship like this at least, because again, they should be ready to go right out of the box. Now, the other piece, which is the stand itself, which to me, a stand is really important with adjustable dumbbells in general, regardless if you're buying the company provided one or you're having your own space. But keeping these on the floor is kind of a bummer, because when you're using heavy dumbbells, bending down to pick them up, it's kind of a pain, right? You're stressing your lower back, but also lining them up with the other plates can be a bit more cumbersome if you're having to go really far down or at an awkward angle. So getting these up and elevated and basically somewhere around waist height makes it easy in, easy out, and also it just looks nice because it gets these up off the floor. I will say with this particular stand, I do wish that it was a little bit taller, but that's for me who is a little bit taller. I think for most people, these will be fine. And as you can see, it fits in nice, even despite the fact that I have a ton of gym equipment down here, full dumbbell set behind me. This still takes up very minimal space. And these dumbbells are quite adjustable, which we'll get to in a second, which I think will be the main selling point. I will comment one thing here on the stand, which again, they did include with me. I think it's an extra $100 or so if you're going to buy it separately. Nice thing about it is The actual cradles themselves screw into it on the bottom via some thumb screws, which is nice because if you've used adjustable dumbbells in the past, they have the tendency to slide around a little bit, or in some cases the handle and weights get stuck when you're taking the dumbbell in or out, especially with heavier loads. So the fact that they're fully secured makes sure that they're not going anywhere, which is really nice. If you don't opt for the stand here where they connect, the cradles initially come with these little they look like suction cups, but they're not suction cups, but they're like clear plastic little rubber casters for the bottom to make sure that they won't slip or anything like that. Not to say that they would when they're loaded with the amount of weight that these can load on. But the downside for me with this stand, and it's more of just an inconvenience, and I'm trying to let you know my first impressions, was the instructions were incomplete. Incomplete meaning that they just stopped after a certain step, and the stand was not built, but the instructions were done. We're like, you know what, we've had enough. You're on it, you're your own for right now, which is okay because thankfully there's not very many pieces with this. There's 6 total pieces maybe between the 2 legs, the 2 braces, and the 2 cradles. And there's 16 bolts. You can figure it out. But the instructions were blank at a certain point, which I just thought was odd and somewhat comical. The other thing that a little bit irritated me was it ships with 16 bolts, as I mentioned, but 8 of those bolts are the same size. 8 of them are not the same size as the first 8. And it does matter where you put these in this setup. You're gonna wanna take those longer threaded bolts up top because you need to work through some brackets to secure these cradles in, which wouldn't be a big deal if they denoted that in the instructions, but the instructions just said you get 16 bolts and it didn't say they were different length. So I had to end up going back and taking some of the lower bolts off and readjusting and finding the right ones. And it's only like 1/4 of an inch or so, so it's not super evident unless you're cognizant of that, which I was not because I looked at the instructions for once and the contents of it, and it just said you get 16 bolts. I figured all the bolts were the same size. They were not. So a little bit of annoyance in that end, but again, overall, the build, the construction, very easy process, 16 bolts putting in here, all tools supplied for you. It does not take very long to get this thing up and running. Now, you probably don't care about the stand. I get that. Let's talk about the dumbbells themselves. So these are adjustable dumbbells in the style of Nuobell or Snode, which are probably the 2 most popular brands out there, meaning that you use the handle to twist and adjust the weight. There's a small little window on either side of the handle to tell you how much weight you're using. So a lot of people like this because it's super quick and super easy, especially if you like things like drop sets. Really easy to adjust the weight in and out no matter what you want to go all the way from the bottom of the stack to the full stack. Now, first thing about this handle that I will mention is that it is a little bit thicker, and that's to kind of work with the adjustment mechanism here. Again, similar to what you'll find in the Snode or Nuobells. It is about 36.5 millimeters in thickness. So if you do not like a thicker handle, this might not appeal to you. I don't find it overly big. I find it just about right. I do have bigger hands, but if you do not like big handles, you might not like the handle size on this. The actual length, which I'll throw up on the screen, is about good. If you're planning on putting any additional plates on here like micro gains, you might run out of space depending on how big your micro gains type plate is, how big your hands are. I probably wouldn't suggest it. There's not a lot of playroom here. It's gonna be a little bit tight otherwise, because again, you have to compensate for the mechanisms here within the dumbbell itself. Speaking of the handles one last time before moving on, they are knurled, but it is super passive. And even for dumbbell standards, I find that they're pretty passive. You don't need super aggressive knurling, but it would be nice to have just a little bit more of a bite. Towards the tail end or beginning of the handle, you see these small plastic rings, which are some of the only pieces of plastic you'll see on these. So overall, I think a lot of reasons that people get excited about these dumbbells is because they see them and they think that they're all metal, which they mostly are. A lot of the components that you're going to see visually and be touching and having your hands on are metal. You have these metal plates, which are stainless steel coated, these metal housing brackets for some of the adjustment units. The handle itself is metal. Where you see plastic is going to be on the inside and inside the housing itself, as well as on the very bottom of the inside plates. There's these small plastic saddles which are attached to the actual mechanism itself, but otherwise you will not be seeing any plastic on the dumbbells. That being said, however, these do have plastic in them, so these are not on the same level as something like the Pepin Fast series, which have a different mechanism for adjusting, obviously, and thus they can get away without having any plastic pieces. These do look very heavy duty. They feel somewhat heavy duty, But after handling the Pepins, they are not on that same level in a quality sense of heavy duty metal. You can definitely tell that there's some plastic pieces in here, and even some of the metal pieces like the handle and the housing, you can tell are hollow on the inside. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, and that's the adjustability. The plates themselves, super thin, stainless steel coated as I mentioned. It allows you to adjust anywhere from 8.5 pounds up to 92 pounds. And I'm sure you're thinking in your head right now, those are some weird numbers. Yes, that is one of the downfalls of this model, is while it is super adjustable, it has the style that many people like, it has the metal finishing which many people like. One of the main downfalls of this model, in my opinion, is just the weight jumps. The weight jumps somewhere around every 3.5 pounds or so. So it's like 8.5, 12 pounds, 15.5 pounds. I'll show you a run through of all the numbers, but it goes all the way up to 92 pounds. So the pro of that is these are, to my knowledge, the heaviest adjustable dumbbell of this style, and that is with the rotating handle. The Nuobells, which a lot of people like, and even the Snodes, which a lot of people like. I know the Nuobells go up to 90. The Snodes initially were really these weird numbers as well. I think they've since rectified that. This one is the heaviest of the bunch at 92 pounds, but you do have the odd adjustments. I have read on some of Trulap's Instagram posts that they're working on 5-pound jumps model. And if you're really married to the 5-pound jump, or even 2.5-pound increments in some instances, these might rustle your jimmies just a little bit. I will say, however, I don't think this is a big deal for a lot of people, because if you're buying these for use in your home and you're going to be the one using them, chances are you're not going to be using any other dumbbells if you have these, unless they're dumbbells heavier than 92 pounds or less than 8.5 pounds, is you will adapt. You will just get to know, it's like, hey, last week I used 35.5 pounds. Next week I'm gonna aim for 38 or 39 pounds. I think that'll come with time, but again, just know that it's something that might annoy some people out there. Another thing that I think would really annoy some people out there is when it comes to what's recommended with these in terms of drops. That's a question we always get on adjustable dumbbells. Can you drop them? How do they hold up to drops? It is, I would say suggested, but it's not even suggested. They tell you don't drop these. The warranty does not cover drops. You are not supposed to drop these dumbbells. Even with normal use, you're not supposed to do it. You do get somewhat of a get out of jail free card, because in their 3-year warranty that is provided from Trulap, they do say that they will account for 1 accidental drop. So if you accidentally drop it and break it, you get that 1 get out of jail free card, but otherwise you're on your own in order to replace these. And to my knowledge, there's no simple fix for broken dumbbells of this nature. You have to replace, in most cases, an entire handle, which no one really wants to do, right? Because that's expensive if it's not covered under warranty. And a downfall of that warranty, or lack thereof, for drops, is one of the key selling points is that these go heavier than other dumbbells. So if you're using 92 pounds, the full Monty, as some might call it, on a movement, chances are it's going to be somewhat of a controlled drop regardless. It's going to be hard if you're doing like a flat press to get these into a good position where you're not potentially putting yourself at risk of injury. You're going to have to get these on the ground somehow, and fortunately that's what the nature of the beast of this design. Otherwise, things with this, like I said, I think it's pretty good. I haven't talked too much about price just yet, but in context of price, these things retail for $799 for just the dumbbells, which if you compare it to a Nuobell at $750 is right in the ballpark. But again, in this case, you get 12 pounds more at the cost of potentially, the weird jumps and the warranty process as well. Although I think Nuobell's process for warranty is very similar with that. One thing I do want to talk about is I put up a YouTube short, which not a lot of people like and not a lot of people watch, myself included, but I made one anyways because it was just like a 60-second video. Pounds course. It makes these super noisy. So one of the downsides potentially of having not a lot of plastic in a design like this, where you have multiple plates being stacked up against each other, is these can potentially have a little bit of a rattle to them. In that YouTube short, I kind of over-exaggerated the rattle and shaking these in a way you probably wouldn't do when in use. But I will say again, because it's metal on metal with no buffer in between of anything, You will sometimes get rattling or clicking while in use depending on how controlled you are with the weight. If you're super slow tempo type lifting, you probably will not hear it for the most part, maybe just when you're changing directions as the weights shift. But if you're doing something really forceful or trying to be explosive, you will definitely hear some noises when using this. Some people have those auditory isms where they don't like those noises or certain things. If you're one of those type, again, that might be something to potentially stay away from. But overall, if you're looking for an adjustable dumbbell that doesn't break the bank in context of how much a fixed dumbbell set would, in context of how much the Pepin Fast Series dumbbells sell for, which is $1,700 for a 120-pound set, having these being adjustable up to 92 pounds, if you're willing to put up with the weird jump increments, as well as the no drop policy, except for accidental use one time, these might be the dumbbells for you. Now, they did give me a discount code for these, but I don't want to make money off of talking about certain pieces of equipment to you guys. And again, you're going to be over inundated with a bunch of these videos from a lot of other influencers who are my friends. We'll probably go more in depth than I have here in my video. So I stress you to use their discount code if you're interested. If you have any questions specifically on these or want to know more about them, let me know in the comment section below. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.